Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Celia Denton, and welcome to those that's frequent and old visitors. It's nice to see you again, and also welcome to all the new people today. This will be emotional intelligence part 1. It's the first part of 3 parts. So for the next few Wednesdays, there'll be an emotional intelligence session, part 1, part 2, part 3, but also keep an eye out on your invitations. After this, we will have a stress management, part 1, part 2, part 3, which is very good. So please keep an eye on that, invite people to come and join it. Currently at the moment, even though COVID is sort of past, I found that when we do psychometric assessment, we can still see people are highly stressed. And is it my computer is plugged in? Yes. Okay, we can see that people are highly stressed and they're still not, themselves, the old self. So please join in on this if you can, and invite people to also join in on this. It is time now more than ever to look after your emotional health. All right, so let's start so long. It's now just after 9. So this is emotional intelligence part 1. Okay. So my name is Cecilia Denton, and I'm an industrial psychologist, and I'm the owner of PTES Consulting. So we are psychometric assessment specialists, and included in today's presentation is emotional intelligence. This was arranged by the HR Talk, so thank you so much for them. They always set up these invitations for us. They make the registration process so easy and quick, so thank you to them as well. They are the guys that do the HR support. We do the psychometric assessment support. So if you were wondering where we fit in, that's how it works. Okay, so first, before we start, I'm going to speak to you about emotional intelligence today, but I'm going to start with a very, very interesting and a good example. So bear with me as we go through it. I'm going to explain what, why, what does it mean? Because most of the time people ask me, if I want to develop my emotional intelligence, what is it? What is it? What do I do? What is it? How do I start? So I'm going to start explaining to you what it is, what it looks like. Only then can you do something about it. Okay, so let me tell you the story about Lisa Nowak. So to become an astronaut with NASA is a grueling process that includes rigorous and challenging selection procedures. Out of thousands of applicants, only about half a dozen is selected each decade. So in order to be able to apply, you need extensive experience and knowledge in science and engineering. Not only do you need to be physically strong, you need to be a pilot with about 1,000 hours working experience. So this is the story of Lisa Nowak. She adhered to all the criteria above. She had a master's degree in aeronautical engineering and had studied postgraduate astrophysics at the U.S. Naval Academy. She flew air missions for the U.S. Navy in the Pacific for over 5 years. And in 1996, she was one of the fortunate few to be selected to become an astronaut. So this is an incredibly intelligent woman. This is someone who's a really skilled, competent. You can see in the photo here, she was also quite young. So really a fantastic individual. So why am I telling you about this? Just purely because it's a very, very good example of having a very high intelligence, but neglecting your emotional intelligence. So in 2007, after discovering that her lover was seeing another woman, Lisa drove about 15 hours straight in a diaper from Houston to Orlando in order to confront her boyfriend's new girlfriend in an airport parking lot. Okay, let me first just explain to you what happened here. This was the selected team at NASA. So Lisa Nowak is the lady in the middle here that you can see. She had an affair with a guy that's here on her, well, it's on my left-hand side. And although Lisa Nowak was married and she had 2 children, she still connected to this guy. And I think maybe she connected to him because the high level that they were functioning on, cognitively, they were selected. I mean, it was really, these are really people that perform on an exemplary level, and they were selected. Every phase they get selected. And this is the girl on the woman on the right. This was the new girlfriend of Lisa Nowak's boyfriend. So what I could assume from this situation, from the story, was that I think the boyfriend tried to break up with her. But now, keeping in mind, Lisa Nowak is already married. So it's quite a confused story. It's quite a dysfunctional story. But I do get the impression that because of the place where they functioned, they had some sort of a connection. But okay, so the story just ends up with Lisa Nowak realizing that this guy doesn't want to be with me anymore. So what she did, she drove 15 hours straight in one of the diapers that these people wear when they are on their space trips to the moon or wherever. So really very well prepared. So she drove to confront this woman on the right-hand side about her relationship with her boyfriend, who sort of broke up with her. Okay, so she packed zip ties, pepper spray, large garbage bags, and had some vague but not really thought through plan to kidnap the woman. So the plan was it was really not well put together. Although she had all these things in the trunk, in her car, in the trunk, there was really not a very well thought through plan. So it's almost like she acted on on her emotions, that type of thing. But before she could even get the woman out of a car, Lisa had an emotional breakdown, resulting in her being arrested very quickly. So it's almost like she was overwhelmed with feelings and emotions. She acted on it, but for quite a long time. Listen, it didn't happen in 2 minutes. She did drive for 15 hours with these thoughts in her head. Gets there, before she does anything, she breaks down to such an extent that she didn't even do anything. So she didn't act on what it sort of was that she planned. She never acted on it, but you could see that she had some sort of an intention to do something. Okay, so you're all wondering, so what happened here? So Lisa was initially charged with attempted murder, because if you look at the garbage bags, that's never a good sign if there's zip ties and pepper spray with it. So she was initially charged with attempted murder and kidnapping, but the charges were eventually reduced to burglary and misdemeanor. So she pleaded guilty in 2009 and was sentenced to a year of probation. So she did not go to jail, but she was discharged from the Navy, and she was put on probation. She now lives in Texas and works in the private sector. So she lost everything that she worked for, that she accomplished actually so well. She lost all of that. So most people would think this person is just crazy. But remember now, for you to apply as a pilot and then as an astronaut, the grueling processes that they go through hectic, emotional types of screening to see whether you are okay or whether you are normal, a functioning person. So she did pass all of that. So after this, also NASA indicated that they will zoom in deeper onto the emotional parts of people before they select them. But what I think, why this is such a good example of the emotional intelligence scenario is because you can clearly see she's a highly intelligent person, but the emotional intelligence part is the part that's lacking. Okay, so before we go into more deeper understanding of Lisa Nowak and what that whole thing means, because the normal person out there is just going to say, that woman is nuts. She is nuts. But we're going to go deeper into that just now. Let me first now explain to you what is emotional intelligence. So an emotion is a complex psychological state that involves 3 distinct components. So firstly, there's a subjective experience. There's then a physiological response. And then there is a behavioral or an expressive response. For example, let's take traffic. let's say they've been stuck in traffic. That's a very good example of stress. That would be your subjective experience. Now, if you have a situation, and remember this, there has to be a situation for the physiological response to come. What we think sometimes, we just think that we have this response or we are stressed. Like you will hear people say, I'm very stressed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed. There's a reason why you are. That's why you can do something about it. We just think when we say I'm stressed, I'm anxious, it's just there. No, it's not. There has to be a subjective experience. It can be anything. Then a physiological response, then there's a behavior to respond to it. So for example, if say I drive onto the highway and I didn't see there was a backup of cars, I drive into it, that's my subjective experience. My physiological response would be based on my thinking, which is, this is happening again, I'm going to be late, this always happens to me. So that thinking has got an effect on my body. That's where the physiological response comes from. And that's when I do something about it. Either I say to myself, I'm going to relax and just drive through it, or I start driving erratically, I start hooting at people, or I start fiddling with my phone or whatever. So that is emotions, that is the description and the process of emotion. So a subjective experience, that is being stuck in traffic. This physiological response is feeling panicked, stressed, anxious, frustrated. A behavioral or expressive response is maybe driving erratic, faster, pushing in front of others, or even just relaxing. Okay, so what is emotional intelligence? This refers to the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotion. So I'm going to say that again. So emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotion. So this is often what happens when people have got a personality disorder or whatever. They'll say the person cannot regulate their emotions. It means that I will experience emotions. I don't know what to do with it at all, and I've got no control over it. So what you can do if you're a normal, healthy, functioning person, even if you're not, you can still get help to help you with it. So it's to perceive. I perceive what is going on. Something is causing me stress, whether that's my partner or my work or whatever. I perceive stress. Then I control it. And I can also evaluate the emotion, which means that I can distinguish the level of seriousness, and I can control it as I get it and I push it outwards. So some researchers suggest that emotional intelligence can be learned and strengthened, while others claim that it's inborn, it's an inborn characteristic. I feel that anything can be taught, learned, and you can get better at it. I don't ever think that you are born with something and now you are stuck. I don't believe that. Anyone who wants to can make something better. That's why the stress workshops that we also do, that will look at what is stress, what's anxiety, what is worry. All of those things are separate components. So you cannot just say, I am an anxious person. You are anxious because of something, and that's something that you need to explore, go find out what it is, and you can get better at it. So you can still be an anxious person, but just know you're not a victim of it. You can do something about it if you want to, and if you then can understand what it is. So let's look at the second point here. The ability to express and control emotions is essential, but so is the ability to understand, interpret, and respond to the emotions of others. So it's very important that you can express and control your own, but also understand, interpret, respond to those of others. So it's your own and others. So imagine a world in which you could not understand when a friend was feeling sad or when a coworker was angry. So psychologists refer to this ability as emotional intelligence. So some experts even suggest that it can be more important than IQ in your overall success. Look at Lisa Nowak. I don't want to jump ahead, but yeah, this is the next slide. Let's go back to Lisa. So EQ is the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotion. So I want to ask you at this point to type your answers if you want to participate. What do you think what emotions did Lisa experience? Now, while you are thinking and typing, remember now, I'm taking a situation which is Lisa's. We are not saying what she did was right or that it should be set aside, it wasn't as bad, or shame poor Lisa, whatever. We know her situation. She was doing very well in her career, was married, had children. So there was a few very wrong decisions that she made. So we're not excusing that. But I still want, set that aside. I want you to think, what emotions did she experience? She had this connection with this guy that were performing on her level. You know, they were chosen as astronauts. So it's quite, these people are definitely on a different mindset level, possibly than us, maybe us mere mortals. Let's call it that. But what emotions did you think she experienced? So she's got a connection with this guy. This guy doesn't want to be with her anymore. He goes for another co-worker. So what do you think she experienced? Let me just see what, so here is some of your answers. Betrayal, anger, betrayal, rejected, jealousy. Yes, and remember, I'm not saying that she did anything that she did right and that she didn't make wrong decisions. But we are now objectively looking at non-judgmentally at what was she experiencing. So there was some people here say rage, hate, losing control, feeling vengeful, anger, betrayal, anger. Absolutely, because even though she maybe got sidetracked, so there's her husband and children, she got sidetracked and her mind was starting to think over here. She was starting to get obsessed over here. That could be the feelings that she was experiencing. So then the next topic is express and control emotions. So was Lisa able to constructively express and control her emotions? So if you think of, so she was feeling those feelings. So you listed all of these feelings here, né? That's correct. Was she able to constructively express what she was experiencing and control her feelings? So that would be the second stage. So firstly, she's perceiving these emotions. Do you think she was able to constructively express what she was feeling? And do you think she could control her feelings? So let me see what you put here. Okay, so everyone is saying no. I think that's pretty, I like this one. She was overwhelmed by her feelings. Once again, I'm not saying that what she did was right. I'm not excusing her behavior, but you can clearly she was overwhelmed. She put a car in the boot full of plastic garbage bags, pepper spray, and dye bags. So of course she didn't have. She was overwhelmed. She was so overwhelmed. She just put on a diaper, for goodness sakes. So that's how in so much of a rush she was. So someone else said, yeah, no, because the actions were not rational and she went on and acted on an impulse. Yes, I think it's because she didn't understand it. She was massively overwhelmed and sort of acted on it, not thinking about it rationally. So yes, she can fly a fighter plane. She can get onto a spaceship and go to the moon. I mean, those are incredibly cognitively complex situations that she found herself in. But on the emotional side, I don't think she knew what was hitting her. So the last one here is understanding, interpret, and respond to the emotions of others. So this is a very good question. Did she understand or care about the emotions and the feelings of the other parties? Did anyone even think about that? So what would be your answer to think if she understood the other party's emotions? So what do you think about that? Okay. Let me just see here. So what do you think about that? Okay, so someone says, I don't think so, because she couldn't discern that her actions could impact emotionally on the other parties. Absolutely. So you cannot think or feel about anything about anyone else if you don't even understand what you are going through. So if you are overwhelmed and you feel crazy. You cannot look at anyone else's emotions at that stage. Okay, so everyone here is saying no. Okay, yes. So let's go on to the next slide. So firstly, also, I want to tell you what emotional intelligence is not. So this is why I think it's people are hesitant to explore it or go into it, because the first thing when in my business, when I speak to people about this, they think it's being soft, it's being crying all the time, hugging and being all pushy and warm. It's not that. So emotional intelligence is not being agreeable. It's not agreeableness, optimism, happiness, calmness, dropping your own standards, giving into excuses, letting people get away with things, hugging and consoling. That's probably the biggest thing that I hear when I talk to people about things is they think it's being soft. And not that there's anything wrong with being soft, but I think people in the workplace often think it means that I'm soft and you can push me over, things like that. It's not that at all. So there's another comment here. Let me just see. Although also her intelligence is based on abstract things like science and not at things like emotions, because emotions are not exact sciences. Yes, because it's based on feelings. And what are your feelings? Like, what is it? Where does it start? Where does it end? When is it too much? When is it, you know, it's a very vague thing. So the only thing that you can do is become aware. And awareness is a critical word here, is awareness of what it is that you are thinking, feeling. If you study science, if you study to become a fighter pilot, everything is based on very hardcore, practical facts. It's practical, it's tangible. I can go faster, slower. It's everything is practical and tangible. An emotion is not. An emotion is very vague. That's why it's quite a big thing if you could become aware of it and if you could master it, because it's such a difficult thing to do. So once again, I just want to reiterate, emotional intelligence that does not mean that you're agreeable and constantly optimistic and happy and calm, and especially dropping your own standards. It is just objectively and non-judgmentally trying to understand what is going on. That's all you do, you're understanding. So what we are doing now with Lisa, we're not judging or deciding whether she was right or wrong. All we're doing now is understanding what happened. That's all. Let's go on to the next page. So low EQ would look like this. A low IQ is being argumentative, not listening, blaming others, emotional outbursts. An emotional outburst is probably because you don't know how to construct what it is that you want to say in a positive way so that you are heard. Always having to be right, oblivious to others' feelings, poor coping skills, turn conversations to themselves, struggle with relationships. So if we had to look at Lisa Nowak and we would immediately jump into, she did this right, that wrong, blaming this one. Yes, but it's that. I'm not listening to what was going on. That type of thing, it means that we are not non-judgmentally looking at the situation and just saying what happened there. Once again, not saying whether she was right or wrong. That's not what we're looking at here right now. Okay, so what high EQ looks like. So a high EQ individuals control their interactions with toxic people or with any person by keeping their feelings in check. So when they need to confront a toxic person or anyone, they approach the situation rationally. They identify their own emotions and don't allow anger or frustration to fuel the chaos. So they've got a robust emotional vocabulary. They are curious about people, and curiousness about people means that you're trying to understand how different people are, how people are different in what and how, what makes them different from you, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses. So it's always good to know what am I good at, but also to know your weakness, like when do you need to step back. And when you know, okay, I'm getting tired now, or I'm feeling a little bit sick now. So you know what is also something that people don't understand about if we look at resilience, resilience is something that's not just emotional, but it's also physical. So what I'm talking about here when I say knowing your strengths and weaknesses, it's also knowing when you are starting to physically feel sick. To not just push through because I'm not a weak person, I'm pushing through, to know when my body even is feeling sick. So not just your emotions, but even when your body is telling you, listen, I'm feeling fluish, I'm not feeling well, I'm sleepy or whatever, but you push through it because it's almost like you feel there's not enough cues to tell you, I need a break or whatever. Good judge of character, difficult to offend, let go of mistakes. They don't hold on to grudges. They neutralize toxic people. Don't participate in the, because it doesn't matter. Things comes and goes. Events comes and goes. Bad situations comes and goes. So if you look at it like that, things comes and goes. Bad things blow over as well. Don't seek perfection. They disconnect. And I'm saying disconnect on purpose because disconnection means disconnection from your phone, from your TV, from everything that's online, just to take a break sometimes. Limit your caffeine intake. The reason why I'm saying this, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big, big coffee fan. I've got the machines, I've got the everything. I cannot take my coffee away from me. I do try and keep a balance though, because caffeine has a fake stimulation. Well, it's not fake. It's a stimulation of the central nervous system, which can give you a fake sense of that you're feeling stronger or energetic, and that whereas very good meditation can also give you the same type of stimulus, you're just a little bit more in control. So I'm not saying stop your caffeine intake. Advice that I would give you is drink very good quality coffee. Try and get a good quality decaf if you can, and just have a balance. Just control it. Don't do too much. Even control your coffee and your tea so that you don't take in too much during the day, because that is definitely what affects your sleep. That's the next point. But the big thing is all of these things stimulate your central nervous system. And that's the thing that that we sometimes can't calm down, because anxiety, all of that works on the central nervous system. So it's just your central nervous system that's on a very high alert. So if you could just tone down some of the things that you take in order to make yourself feel better, it will work better for you. So you stop negative self-talk in its tracks. This is a very important point. Negative self-talk, very important point. There's no need ever to put yourself down, ever. If anyone can give me one good reason to put yourself down, I would really like to see it. You won't let anyone limit your joy. Let me just see, there's another comment here. A robust emotional vocabulary. What that means is you understand emotional terms. So a robust emotional vocabulary, it just means understanding different emotional terms. That would include things like, let's go back to things like resilience. What does it mean? What does anxiety mean? What does stress? What does emotion or emotional intelligence mean? All of those type of things. What does support means to others? What does empathy mean? So all of those terms, do you actually know what it means, and can you use it, and can you see it? So I hope that answers your question. One would actually have to Google EQ a little bit more to see what it is about. I can tell you the biggest thing that I can see wrong with people, not wrong with people, what people's question to me is what EQ is, and they just think it means that you are weak, that you hug and cry a lot, and it's not at all. What we are doing with Lisa Nowak, we're non-judgmentally analyzing what she was going through. So that's what EQ is. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So there's 4 levels of emotional intelligence. So perceiving emotions. So the first one is perceiving emotions. The first step in understanding emotions is to perceive them accurately. So in many cases, this might involve understanding nonverbal signals, such as body language and facial expressions. So you may be talking to someone about something, you may pick up a slight non-verbal cue, but you decide to not to worry about it, because maybe those are the things that you want to tune into, is the body language or the facial expressions. You'll know when that thought pops up in your head. We just learned how to shove it aside. So tune into what you read in other people, but also don't jump to conclusions too quickly. I've also seen some people where the emotional intelligence is very low, where they read emotions very, very wrongly. And what you can do then, if you don't know, ask. That's how you're going to know how someone is feeling, is ask. Reasoning with emotions. The next step involves using emotions to promote thinking and cognitive activity. So emotions help prioritize what we pay attention and react to. We respond emotionally to things that garner our attention. So reasoning with emotion. So let me just read that again. The next step involves using emotion to promote thinking and cognitive activity. So emotions help us to prioritize what we pay attention to and react to. We respond emotionally to things that garner our attention. Okay, so then the third one, understanding emotions. So the emotions that we perceive can carry a wide variety of meanings. So if someone is expressing angry emotions, the observer must interpret the cause of the person's anger and what it could mean. So for example, if your boss is acting angry, it might mean that they are dissatisfied with your work, or it can be that they got a speeding ticket on their way to work that morning, and that they've been fighting with their partner. So understanding emotions, but the thing is, what we also do is we very quickly think that it may be about us. So the boss comes to work, the person is, say, quiet or angry or whatever, and we immediately think it's about us. So if you understand more, you will not just think, oh, he's angry at me. You'll think, he could be angry at me, but he could also have had a difficulty in traffic to work. Someone could be sick at home, whatever. So now you're thinking of more things than just one thing. Can you see? You still don't know what the answer is. Your boss is angry. You don't know what the answer is, but you're not just thinking one thing. You're not just thinking, oh my God, I did something wrong. It's me, it's me. You're actually thinking, well, it could be angry at me, but it could also have been traffic. It could also have been this, or it could also have been that. So can you see, you're just alleviating a little pressure on yourself. Okay, let me just see if there wasn't another comment here. Okay. Do you have any books that we can read to improve EQ? I don't know specific books, but I can tell you there's a hell of a lot of information available on the internet on EQ. And you will see, the more you research, the more repeated topics pop up, for example, about what it is. And if you read everything over and over, you'll start to get what it is about. So this last one, the 4 levels of emotional intelligence, managing emotions. So the ability to manage emotions effectively is a crucial part of emotional intelligence, and the highest level. So this would be your most important thing, is to manage your emotions and to regulate what it is that you are feeling. So first thing is to recognize that you have that emotion, and trying to understand it, but also understand that it could have a variety of meanings, and then managing it by regulating and regulating what it is that's going on in you. Okay, sorry about that. I jumped a little. Okay, let's go through the map of intelligence. Sorry. Okay, so there's 4 things. Yeah. If you look at on the internet, you will find more definitions, but I'm just going to show you what it is that I found. So firstly, knowing my emotions. Secondly, handle my emotions. Thirdly, manage relationships. And fourthly, recognizing others' emotions. And then in the middle there, motivating yourself. So interestingly enough, motivation of yourself is a very important thing. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. I don't want to go too slow and then I miss out on some things. So this is just an easy map. So if we look at this easy map, this is something you can remember easily. So firstly, knowing my emotions. So you need to get to know yourself. Don't think you know yourself already. Get to know yourself. How do you feel when you open an email, you read an email and it's got quite a nasty tone and you actually feel funny when you read it. That awareness of how you're thinking and feeling, that is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying do anything about it. What I'm saying is start to recognize when something affects you or how you feel about it. So knowing yourself that in certain situations, this makes me feel this way, that makes me feel that way. And we all know how it feels when you open up an emotion, an email, and it's got a nasty tone to it. How when you feel like the blood drain out of your face, or you almost feel a little lightheaded, or you feel, the butterflies in your stomach. Just being aware of that is what I'm talking about. And then secondly, handling those emotions. So, for example, another good example would be now you open up that email with a nasty tone in it, not just immediately clicking on reply and sending a message back. First, understanding how this made me feel, wait a while, read the email again, and then see what did the person actually mean. How many of you have read emails and then after a while reading it again and then realize, oh, that's not exactly what they meant, like I thought the first time, or even any type of situation. How many times has that happened? I've read emails and it's happened to me more than a few times where I read something, I think I'm getting attacked. When I relax and just back off for a minute and I read it again later, then I realize that's not what they meant. And then I'm just so glad I didn't respond immediately. Someone else says, maybe write a draft and don't send it immediately. Even then you can do it. But you know why I would recommend not even writing it immediately and just not send it. You know what? Because if you back off a little bit and you just calm down and you just understand yourself and you just calm down, you're actually going to save yourself all that effort of writing the angry email, because when you back down for 5 minutes, you will settle to the extent that you realize, I can actually write a better email. So you're not wasting your time. That's what I mean with this. You're not wasting your precious time, because all of these emotions, it takes a lot of energy out of you, doesn't it? It's a tiring thing. Can you just imagine what Lisa Nowak was going through, that 15 hours in that car, driving and thinking? She must have been exhausted. That's probably why she cracked when she arrived at the other point. So that's handling my emotions, and then manage relationships. So managing relationships, let me just see, there was another comment here. Okay, yes, I see you agree. Yeah, I'm just trying to save you energy, and I want to save you time and hassle. Life can be simple. We must just, things comes and it goes. Everything comes and everything passes. COVID passed, everything passed. Everything is hectic right now, and then it passes. How many things stay? There's a few things that stays, but most things pass. So the third component there, manage relationships. So that would be the way that you manage relationships. So that is just being aware of your own things, but also being aware of other people's needs, being aware of what other people go through, so that you will see links to the fourth point, recognizing other people's emotions. So if you can do that, you'll be able to manage relationships very well. So that is very important. So that would be thinking about something first before you just type the email and send it. Thinking before you just respond. Just thinking about it. Because remember, you also have your sensitive point. Someone is pushing a button. Maybe they don't even know that they're pushing it. Maybe they do know they're pushing it, but maybe they don't know they're pushing it. Either way, don't play into it. Just think about it. Just think about it first. And then lastly, motivate yourself. So, okay, let's look at this. I'm going to explain this further. So knowing my emotions, this is knowing my emotional strength and being sure about my abilities. So know your emotional strengths, know your abilities. What are you good at, or what do you know you're not so good at? Handling my emotions. When are you faced with emotional triggers? What are your triggers? If you know your triggers, you can start to learn other people's triggers as well. Manage your relationships, read and manage social situations. I just want to try and see if I can, there's a, I can't see what I've written at the bottom here because the screen is in my way. Okay, I can move it. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. It was blocking things that I was writing here. So manage relationships mean read and manage social situations, interact successfully with others, and negotiate well with others. Okay, and then the last one, recognize others' emotions, working with people from different cultures, talking to supervisor or subordinate, getting to know new people. So that would be any people, not just different cultures. That would be anyone, male, female, black, white, younger, older, anyone. So just becoming aware and learning more. Okay, now we're going to do a little questionnaire. Let me just quickly look at the notes. Someone made a question here. With MR, managing relationships, sometimes it can be hard to discern whether your reaction should be to be quiet or to be assertive, meaning clearly stating to the other person your boundaries. And this is important for you then to read. Is it now the right time to say something, or should you wait? So you must learn to read the situation, because there is a reason why you are thinking, should I be quiet or should I assertively say what it is that I'm thinking? So you are already aware that I can't just blurt some things out. So you are probably unconsciously thinking it may be worth it to just wait a while or go back later or whatever. There's a reason why you are already thinking that, because you may know that it is better to calm the situation down and maybe assert myself later. But you will also know if you are someone who's trying to avoid that outspokenness. So this is the way that you can get to know yourself. But maybe you are probably thinking now is not the right time to just say what it is that I want to say. But it's something for you to explore further, because the people that you have the conflict with, they will all differ. With one, you can immediately assert yourself. The other one, you may need to be quiet first, go back later, or whatever. You need to read your situations. If you can polish that, that would be a good thing for you. Okay, so let's look at the first question here. Okay, good. So the first question, you have a new, unfriendly coworker. Your boss asks you to interact and train the employee, and you need to work in a one-on-one manner. Which component of the emotional intelligence map will work the most effectively here? Okay, so you've got a new unfriendly coworker. Your boss tells you to deal with that person, train them, interact with them. What is going to help you? Which part of the map will help you here the most? Okay, so you guys can type your answer into the chat box. I am going to give you the answer. Let me see. So recognizing others' emotions. I love that because, and also handling emotions. Yes, yes. So in a way, although, let me just show you my answer. So knowing emotions and handling emotions. So knowing my emotions and handling emotions, although that's the answer, every time when I go through this map, I want to tell you that I almost see all four. I don't know if you do the same. So even though when I did the exercise, they say this answer is knowing my emotions and handling my emotions because of, but the more I go through it, I see all four blocks coming out. Okay, let me, oh, did I jump a question? No, there we go. Okay, so this is another question. Karen is a hard worker and very good at her job. The boss wants to promote her to supervisor, but she is not sure whether she is ready for the responsibility. Which component of emotional intelligence will work well here? So she is questioning herself. What do you think she can do about it? So Karen is a hard worker. She's very good at her job. The boss wants to promote her to supervisor, but she is not sure whether she's ready for the responsibility. Which part of the emotional intelligence map will work here the most effectively? And remember, knowing my emotions was the one that says, I know myself, I know my abilities. recognizing others' emotions. Okay, so what else? What do you guys say? Knowing my emotions. So someone said recognize others' emotions. Someone said knowing my emotions. Center for EQ training. Yes. Someone said knowing my emotions, and also she should motivate herself and believe in herself more. Yes, knowing my emotions. Let's see what the answer is. So it is knowing my emotions and being sure of my ability. So absolutely, this person is just not so aware of what it is that they can actually offer. So knowing herself better and her abilities, and also where she's the aspects that she's worried about, to address that will help her a lot. Okay, there's another question. Michael reorganized his workstation to make it more efficient. His employees do not like the changes and is refusing the changes. Which of the EQ components can be effective here? So Michael he changed the workstation. He thought it would be more effective, maybe more optimal. His employees does not like the changes. So which of the EQ components can be effective here? So what can Michael, if Michael looks at the situation, then how can he like address this? Okay, so someone said handling my emotions, managing relationships. Someone said recognizing others' emotions, managing relationships. Recognizing emotions is another one. Someone said managing relationships, and knowing my emotions. Yes, and so let me see what is the actual answer is recognizing others' emotions and managing relationships. So, but I also, once again, I also want to tell you again that I see knowing my emotions as well, because now Michael also needs to know how that response, what triggers in him. So what he can do is also managing relationships. Yes, he can recognize others' emotions, but he can maybe also be aware of what emotions does it elicit in him, because what he's now doing is sort of affecting him. So I would say that everyone's responses here for me is accurate, because once again, it feels for me, it goes back to all four of the maps. If you understand yourself, you will be able to manage relationships. If you understand yourself, you will recognize others' emotions. Okay, let's go to the other one, or the next one. Handling my, that's the answer. Oh, did I jump now? Sorry, I jumped. Okay, this is another question. One of Katie's employees has been late 3 times this week, and she has to give him a warning. She is nervous to talk to him and afraid of what he will think of her. So which of the EQ components can be effective here? Okay, so one of Katie's employees has been late 3 times this week, and she has to give him a warning. She's nervous to talk to him and afraid of what he will think of her. Which of the components can be effective here? Okay, so this is such a good example of what happens almost every day. So yeah, so someone said all. Yeah, probably. Knowing my emotions, that would probably be the starting point, is for Katie to understand her own emotions and then probably handle her emotions. Someone said, yes, handling my emotions, knowing my own emotions, and recognizing others' emotions. Yes. So even though I think the answer is knowing, like handling my own emotions, to knowing my own triggers, handling emotions, and managing relationships, I once again want to almost go back to, if Katie understands her own emotions, she can handle her emotions, therefore she will be able to recognize others' emotions and therefore manage the relationship. So if Katie is, for example, if she doesn't feel very assertive, she could ask herself, but why do I, as the boss, why do I feel that? What am I afraid of? What is it that I'm scared that he's going to do? Am I worried about the consequence? For example, he's going to retaliate, or he's going to walk around with a sour mouth the whole time. If she can start understanding why she's afraid. What is she afraid of? She's afraid of a particular consequence. What would be the consequence of that consequence? What would be the outcome of all of that? If she can start working through that, she can start becoming more assertive and little bit more start asserting herself and putting her thoughts on the table and saying what it is that she wants. So she would need a little bit of practice, but she would need to know why she feels like that. Why is she scared? Why is she holding back? Okay, and then, oh, sorry, this thing is getting a little big here. I'm just trying to make the notes smaller. Okay, so how do I get better at this? Let me just keep an eye on the time. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit faster because there's just 10 minutes left. Okay, so practice self-awareness. How are you going to get better at this? Practice self-awareness. Like most things emotional, you can't get better at them until you know what it is. That's why Katie, she's the boss. She needs to ask herself, what am I afraid of? Why don't I want to talk to my subordinate? What am I worried about that he will do? And if he does it, why would it be so bad? So when you lack self-awareness, trying to manage your emotions like sitting in a tiny boat without a sail on the top of the sea of your own emotions, completely at the whim of the currents of whatever is happening moment by moment. You have no idea where you're going or how to get there, and all you can do is scream and yell for help. So self-awareness involves understanding yourself and your behavior on 3 levels. What you are doing, how are you feeling about it, and the hardest part, figuring out what you don't know about yourself. Okay, so you just want to start getting an awareness of what you are doing, or what feelings are you having while you're doing it, and then what is it that you don't know about yourself. Okay, and then secondly, knowing what you're doing. So you would think that this would be pretty simple and straightforward, but the truth is that in the 21st century, most of us don't even know what we're doing half of the time. Now I'm going back to this whole online thing. We're always on Instagram, on the cell phone, on, well, we're not on TV. We watch TV, check emails, whatever. We are always occupied. There's no awareness of the self anymore. Removing distractions from your life and engaging with the world around you is a nice first step to self-awareness. Finding spaces of silence and solitude, while potentially scary, are necessary for your mental health. Oh, sorry, this chat block box is in my way. I just want to make it smaller. Okay, other forms of distraction include work, TV, drugs, alcohol, video games, all of those type of things. Try to have a time in the day for either 10 minutes a day or an hour a day or whatever, meditate or just sit. How many of you can at tea time or coffee time just sit with your coffee, smell your coffee, sit with your coffee, look in front of you outside your office or whatever, and just drink your coffee and sit there for half an hour, 20 minutes, or whatever. How many of you can do it? So practice that. Try to practice that. The reason why we also want distraction is because we want to avoid uncomfortable emotions. So try to become more aware of yourself. So knowing what you're feeling. So at first, once you actually pay attention to how you feel, you might freak out. You might come to realize that you're often pretty sad actually, or that you're kind of an angry person a lot of the time. You might realize that there's a lot of anxiety going on, and that the whole phone addiction thing is just a really way to constantly numb and distract yourself from anxiety. It's important at this point to not judge the emotions that arise. So don't judge the emotions, just recognize them. Just know that they're there. So you'll be tempted to say something like anxiety or what's wrong with me, but that just makes it worse. So whatever emotion there is has a good reason to be there. And even if you don't remember what the reason is, so don't be so hard on yourself. Okay, knowing your own emotional stuff. So once you see all the icky, uncomfortable stuff that you're feeling, you'll begin to get a sense of where your own little crazy resides. So identify your own stuff, for example, that you may not like being interrupted while talking. So you may be rude back to people. So now just being self-aware is not sufficient in or of itself. One must be able to manage the emotion as well. So People who believe that emotions are the be-all and end-all of life and often seeks to control their emotions. Very importantly, you cannot control it. You can only react to them. So emotions are merely signals that tells us to pay attention to something. So we can then decide whether or not that something is important and choose the best course of action in addressing it or not. So there's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. There are only good or bad reactions to the emotion. That's very important to know. So when you drive into traffic and you drive into it, you go like, oh man, now I'm tripping, just angry, whatever. Then become aware of how you're feeling and saying, okay, I'm feeling this, and it's okay to feel it because now I'm going to be late. But then you can decide how you're going to react to it. That's what that regulating the emotion, that's what that means. So when you have the emotion, that's fine. But then don't judge it. Know that this is making you very angry, but then you can decide, how am I going to react towards it? So anger can be a destructive emotion if you misdirect it and hurt others or yourself in the process. But it can be a good emotion if you use it to correct injustices or protect yourself and others. So you see, it can go both ways. Joy can be a wonderful emotion when shared with people you love, when something good happens, but it can be a horrifying emotion if it's derived from hurting others. So such is the act of managing your emotions, recognizing what you're feeling, deciding whether or not it's an appropriate emotion for the situation, and act accordingly. How many times do we overreact, say, for example, to traffic? You know it's there, it's going to be there, there's a chance that it's going to be there, there's nothing you can do about it. Once you're in it, you're in it. Relax, because once you're in it, you're in it. There's nothing you can do about it. The whole point of this is to be able to channel your emotions into what psychologists calls today goal-directed behavior, or what I prefer to call getting your stuff together. So once you get mature about recognizing that some things just happens, and there's not always traffic, here and there you may hit it bad, but it's not always there. Okay, so I just want to check if there's any additional comments here. Okay, no. Okay, so have you ever lost yourself completely in an activity? For example, you start doing something and get immersed in it, and when you snap out of the quasi-hypnotic state you've somehow induced yourself in, you realize that 3 hours have passed, but it felt like 15 minutes. This is great. This is a great feeling, and when you achieve it, it'll motivate you to keep going. Notice something here, though. Don't wait for that feeling to arise before you start an activity. Start doing something, and then that feeling starts to build, which motivates you to keep going, and the feeling builds a little more and on and on. So that is what we call the do something principle. And it's probably because of the simplest yet most magical hacks we've ever come across. To do something principle states that taking action is not just the effect of motivation, but it's also the cause of it. Okay, so recognizing emotions in others to create healthier relationships. So everything we've covered so far deals with handling and directing emotions within yourself, but the whole point of developing emotional intelligence should ultimately be to foster healthy relationships in your life. So you can do this by connecting and empathizing with others. So both listening to others and sharing yourself honestly with others, that is through vulnerability. So to emphasize with someone doesn't necessarily, to empathize with someone does not necessarily mean to completely understand them, but rather to accept them as they are, even if you don't understand them. You learn to value their existence and treat them as their own and rather on their own end rather than a means for something else. So you acknowledge their pain, as our collective pain. So relationships, as where emotional rubber hits the proverbial pavement. They get us out of our heads and into the world around us. So you will see that relationships is probably the best way that you can measure how good you are with interpersonal relationships. So let's just quickly look at, I know our time is up, so I'm going to quickly go through this. Just give me another 5 minutes. Infuse your emotions with values. In the 90s, emotional intelligence became the big buzzword in psychology. So CEOs and managers, they were reading books and workshops and went to retreats on emotional intelligence to motivate their workforce. So therapists try to instill more emotional awareness in their clients to get a handle on their lives. So parents were admonished to cultivate emotional intelligence in their own children, and the aim was preparing them for a changing, emotionally oriented world. So a lot of this sort of thinking misses the point, however, and that is emotional intelligence is meaningless without orienting your values. So, for example, you might have the most emotionally intelligent CEO on the planet, but if she's using her skills to motivate her employees to sell products made by exploiting poor people or destroying the planet, you see, then it's not very emotionally intelligent. So a father might teach his son the tenets of emotional intelligence, but without also teaching him the values of honesty and respect, he could turn into a ruthless, lying individual, but also an emotionally intelligent one. So something that you need to know, con men are actually very emotionally intelligent. They know emotions very well, and they know exactly what to look for and prey on it. So don't think that your criminals and your con men is not emotionally intelligent. As a matter of fact, they could manipulate extremely well. Okay, let's just look at, this is a continue of that. So Lisa Nowak, for all her brilliance and expertise, and this is how I want to end today. If you look at Lisa Nowak, with all her brilliance and expertise, she couldn't handle her own emotions and valued the wrong things. Therefore, she could let her emotions drive her off the proverbial cliff, going from outer space to incarcerated space. So ultimately, we're always choosing what we value, whether we know it or not, and our emotions will carry out those values throughout motivating our behavior in some way. So in order to live life you truly want to live, you have to first be clear about what you truly value, because that's where your emotional energy will be directed. So remember, someone earlier said, but maybe I can write the email and just save it as a draft. Don't waste your emotional energy. Direct your emotional energy to the best way that you can. And that is first looking at what's going on, just backing off, taking a moment, giving yourself time. What are you rushing for? You don't need to. This is your life as well. Just step back and relax. And knowing that what you truly value, not just what you say value, is probably the most emotional intelligence skill that you can ever develop. Okay, everyone, this is it from me today. Yes, it's a funny it's a funny note, that last one. Okay, so if anyone has got any other questions, I will keep the space open for another few minutes. Was there anything that you wanted to know that I didn't say? Remember that we will be continuing next week, Wednesday. Then we're going to do like a sort of a test. Then we're going to, you will be able to answer how good are you with certain things and not. And you can polish your own skills. So let me know if there's any questions, if there's anything that I didn't say that you wanted to know about, and I can quickly answer you. Also on the screen, you can see our contact details. If you need more information, please let us know. What is what we said about this last question? Please just expand on this last question for me. It says, if you could please go to the slide which said about, but I can't see anything else here. Doing the activity to feel relieved rather than waiting. Doing the activity rather than waiting. I don't know if I understand exactly what you mean with that question. Oh, I don't know if you're making a statement or if you're asking a question, but doing the activity to feel relieved rather than waiting. So sometimes waiting before you do the activity could help you more, but we do the activity quickly to feel relieved. I don't know if you know it. What is it I mean? Please let me know if I'm answering your question. Yeah. I think you must maybe send me an email I'm not understanding your question on the slide for doing the activity to feel relieved rather than waiting. I'm not sure which one that was. Would you please send me a quick email, and then I can respond to that, because I'm not sure what it is that you mean. Okay, fantastic. But I hope to see all of you next week. Thank you for participating. I love the fact that you participated so well. I really appreciated it. And I will see you guys next week. Okay, thank you for all of you too. Thank you, everyone.